The massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers opened with a sound like thunder. Ambassador Hyun-woo stepped inside, his black diplomatic suit looking plain against the colorful robes and strange forms of the alien delegates. Behind him walked his small team of humans, all trying not to stare at the incredible sight before them. The chamber was huge. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. Hundreds of different alien species sat in floating chairs arranged in perfect circles. Some looked like giant insects with glowing wings. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. A few appeared to be nothing but glowing gas held together by energy fields. Hyun-woo had studied alien cultures for 10 years, but seeing them all together still made his heart beat faster. He walked forward on the long purple carpet that led to the center of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the silence. At the front sat High Counselor Veltan of the Zephyrians. She was tall and thin, made of blue crystal that shifted and changed color as she moved. Her voice sounded like wind chimes when she spoke. "So these are the humans," Veltan said. Her tone was cold. "The newest species to reach the stars. How long have you been traveling between worlds, Ambassador Hyun-woo?" 53 years, High Counselor, Hyun-woo replied. He kept his voice steady even though he felt nervous. A sound, like laughter, came from the assembled aliens, but it was not friendly laughter. 53 years, repeated a delegate that looked like a giant octopus. "We have been exploring space for over 10,000 years. What could such young travelers possibly offer us?" Hyun-woo felt his team shift behind him. His technical advisor, Ji-hoon, stepped closer, offering silent support. Next to Ji-hoon stood Dr. So-young, the team's chief scientist. Her calm expression never changed, but Hyun-woo could see the determination in her eyes. "We may be new to space," Hyun-woo said, "but we are here to help however we can." Veltan's crystal form flickered. "Help? You do not understand, young human. We are facing the end of all life in this galaxy." The chamber's lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared in the center, showing a spiral galaxy, but large sections of it were dark. 3 months ago, something awakened in the void between galaxies, Veltan continued. "We call it the Void Swarm. It is an ancient machine intelligence that consumes everything in its path. It has already destroyed 17 star systems." The hologram zoomed in to show massive black shapes moving through space. They looked like mechanical insects the size of moons. Where they passed, planets crumbled into dust and stars grew dim. "Our greatest weapons do nothing," said another delegate, this one looking like a tree made of metal. "The swarm learns from every attack. It adapts faster than we can develop new strategies." Dr. So-young spoke up. "What about evacuation? Moving populations to safer areas?" "There are no safer areas," Veltan replied. "The swarm is heading toward the galactic core. It will consume everything." The chamber fell silent. Hyun-woo looked at the faces around him. Fear, desperation. Some aliens were already preparing to leave. "There is one possibility," said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at Kremos, the council's chief scientist. He was small and gray with 4 arms and large black eyes. When he moved, he seemed to flow like water. "The quantum disruptor array," Kremos said quietly. The reaction was immediate. Several delegates made sounds of alarm. Others moved away from the center of the chamber. "That device is forbidden," Veltan said sharply. "It is too dangerous." "More dangerous than the complete destruction of our galaxy?" Kremos asked. He gestured, and a new hologram appeared. It showed a device about the size of a dinner table. It was made of crystal and metal twisted together in impossible shapes that hurt to look at. The crystal parts seemed to bend light around them, making the whole thing appear to shift and move, even though it was perfectly still. "The quantum disruptor array can tear holes in the fabric of space itself," Kremos explained. In theory, it could destroy the Void Swarm completely, and everything else within 100 light years, added Veltan. Every computer simulation shows the same result. The device will destroy whoever uses it along with the target. Then why are you telling us this? Ji-hoon asked. Kremos's large eyes focused on the human team. Because every species that has studied this device approaches it the same way. We use logic. We follow safety protocols. We plan for every possible outcome. And, Dr. So-young prompted. And perhaps that is the problem, Kremos said. Perhaps what we need is not more careful thinking, but less. Veltan stood up from her chair, her crystal form glowing brighter. You want to give the most dangerous weapon ever created to a species that has barely learned to leave their home planet? I want to give it to a species known for taking risks that other civilizations would never consider, Kremos replied. Humans have a reputation, Ambassador Hyunwoo. Your people do things that seem impossible to the rest of us. Hyunwoo thought about this. Humans did have a reputation in the galaxy. They were known for being reckless, for trying things that more advanced species considered too dangerous or foolish. What exactly are you asking us to do? He said. Kremos flowed forward, producing a small transport container. Inside, the quantum disruptor array sat waiting. Up close, it was even stranger. The twisted metal and crystal seemed to pulse with its own inner light. Take it, Kremos said. Study it. Try to find a way to use it that we have not considered. You have 3 weeks before the Void Swarm reaches the next inhabited system. And if we cannot find a solution, Dr. So-young asked, then we all die, together, Veltan said simply. The chamber was quiet again. Hyunwoo looked at his team. Ji-hoon nodded slightly. So-young's expression was thoughtful but determined. They had come here to help, and this was their chance. We accept, Hyunwoo said. He reached out and took the container. It was surprisingly light, as if the deadly device inside weighed almost nothing. The moment his fingers touched the metal, he felt a strange tingling sensation. Be very careful. Young humans, Veltan warned. That device has the power to unravel reality itself. Do not treat it lightly. Hyunwoo nodded respectfully. We understand the responsibility you are giving us. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Kremos approached them one more time. There is something else you should know, he said, quietly. We have tried everything we can think of. Every approach, every angle, every possible solution. If you cannot find something we have missed, the galaxy will fall to darkness. We will find a way, Ji-hoon said with quiet confidence. I hope so, Kremos replied, for all our sakes. The humans left the chamber carrying the most dangerous device in galactic history, unaware that their solution would come from the most ordinary action imaginable. The transport ship carrying the human delegation touched down on Luna Base 3 days later. The moon's research facility was humanity's most advanced scientific outpost, but compared to the alien technology they had just seen, it looked simple and rough. Dr. So-young led the way through the metal corridors to Laboratory 7, the most secure research area on the base. Behind her, Ji-hoon carefully carried the transport container holding the quantum disruptor array. His hands were steady, but sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool air. Set it down on the center table, So-young instructed as they entered. The lab. The laboratory was a large white room filled with computer screens, analysis equipment, and workbenches. Scientists and technicians bustled around, preparing for the most important research project in human history. Ji-hoon placed the container on a reinforced metal table and stepped back. So-young opened the locks with careful movements. When the lid lifted, everyone in the room stopped what they were doing to stare. The quantum disruptor array sat in its protective foam, looking even more impossible than it had in the council chambers. The twisted crystal and metal structure seemed to bend the light around it, Looking directly at it made people's eyes water and their heads hurt slightly. "It's beautiful," whispered Min-ho, the team's linguist. He had been working day and night to translate the alien technical manuals that came with the device. "It's terrifying," added Yu-jin, the chief engineer. She was studying energy readings from sensors placed around the container. "The power signatures are unlike anything I've ever seen." So-young walked around the table, examining the device from every angle. "According to the alien files, no one has ever successfully activated this thing. Every attempt ended in disaster." "What kind of disaster?" asked Captain Dong-hyun, the military liaison assigned to oversee the project. "Reality tears," So-young replied simply. "Holes in space-time that never heal. In one test, they lost an entire research station and the moon it was built on." The room fell quiet. Everyone understood the weight of what they were dealing with. "But we have to try," Ji-hoon said. "The alternative is watching the void swarm consume everything." So-young nodded. "Let's start with basic analysis. I want full-spectrum scans, gravitational measurements, and quantum field readings. Don't touch the device directly until we understand what we're dealing with." For the next 2 days, the human team worked around the clock. They set up equipment, ran tests, and studied every piece of alien documentation they could find. The results were frustrating. "The power source is completely unknown," Yu-jin reported during their morning briefing. "It's not nuclear, not antimatter, not even exotic matter. It's something else entirely." "The control systems make no sense either," Min-ho added. "The alien manuals describe activation procedures, but they're written more like poetry than technical. Instructions. They keep using words like harmonious resonance and quantum sympathy." So-young rubbed her tired eyes. "What about the structure itself? Any insights there?" "The crystal components seem to exist in multiple dimensions at once," said Dr. Baewon, a quantum physicist who had joined the team. "The metal parts are made from materials that shouldn't be able to exist in normal space." Ji-hoon had been quiet during the briefing, studying the device through the transparent protective barrier they had built around it. "Maybe we're thinking about this wrong," he said finally. "What do you mean?" So-young asked. "The aliens approach everything through pure logic and calculation, right? But their manuals keep using emotional and artistic language. What if this device isn't meant to be operated like a machine?" Captain Dong-hyun frowned. "Are you suggesting it's alive?" "Not alive exactly," Ji-hoon replied. "But maybe it responds to something other than just pushing buttons and flipping switches." Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the base. Red lights flashed as the emergency communication system activated. "All personnel, this is Base Commander Park. We have incoming alien vessels requesting permission to dock. They say they're here to observe our research." So-young sighed. "The babysitters have arrived." An hour later, 2 very different aliens stood in Laboratory 7. The first was Krix-Tal, a Zephyrian commander whose crystal body was deep purple instead of blue. The second was a creature the humans had never seen before. "I am Bloop 7th of the Tentacled Collective," the second alien announced. Its voice came from a translation device, since it communicated normally through color changes in its skin. It looked like a cross between an octopus and a jellyfish, floating in a tank of blue liquid. "We are here to ensure you do not accidentally destroy your solar system," Krix-Tal said bluntly. "Many species have tried to study that device. None have succeeded." "We appreciate your concern," So-young replied diplomatically, "but we need to work without interference." "We will not interfere," Bloop 7th said. "We will simply observe and record your failure for future analysis." The aliens set up their own monitoring equipment in a corner of the lab. Their presence made everyone nervous, but the humans tried to continue their work normally. By the third day, progress had slowed to almost nothing. The team was exhausted and frustrated. They had learned a lot about what the device was made of, but nothing about how it worked or why it was so dangerous. Ji-hoon was working late that night, Alone except for the two alien observers, he was trying a new approach, studying the quantum field patterns around the device. The work was tedious and required intense concentration. Around midnight, he decided he needed coffee to stay awake. The lab's coffee machine was broken, so he made instant coffee using hot water from the emergency supplies. The coffee tasted terrible, but the caffeine helped clear his mind. He returned to his workstation with the steaming mug in his hand. All the chairs around the device were occupied by monitoring equipment, and the nearby tables were covered with computers and sensors. Looking for somewhere to set down his coffee, Ji-hoon glanced around the crowded lab, the only clear, flat surface. Within reach was the top of the quantum disruptor array itself. "It's just for a minute," he muttered to himself, carefully placing the mug on the device's smooth crystal surface. The moment the ceramic touched the alien crystal, everything changed. The device began to hum. It was a low, musical sound that seemed to come from inside the crystal structure. The twisted metal parts started glowing with a soft blue light. Krixtal made a sound like breaking glass. Bloop 7th's tank began bubbling frantically. "Human," Krixtal shouted. "Step away from the device immediately. You have triggered an activation sequence." But Ji-hoon was already backing away, his hands raised. The device continued to hum and glow, but nothing exploded. No reality tears appeared. The coffee mug sat peacefully on top of the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy, and the coffee inside was staying perfectly warm. "This is impossible," Bloop 7th said, its translation device struggling with the creature's agitated color patterns. "According to all our models, your solar system should be collapsing into quantum foam right now." Ji-hoon stared at his coffee mug. "Maybe your models are wrong." The device hummed quietly, casting strange shadows on the lab walls. For the first time since arriving at Luna Base, the quantum disruptor array seemed almost friendly. Outside the laboratory windows, Earth turned slowly in the darkness, unaware that humanity had just taken its first step toward saving the galaxy with nothing more than a cup of bad instant coffee. The next morning, Laboratory 7 was packed with people. Word of the coffee incident had spread throughout Luna Base, and everyone wanted to see the impossible sight for themselves. The quantum disruptor array sat quietly humming, with Ji-hoon's coffee mug still balanced on top. Dr. So-young studied the readings on her computer screen. "The quantum field is completely stable," she announced. "Whatever happened last night, it's not dangerous." "Not dangerous?" Krixtal's crystal form flickered with agitation. "That device has killed thousands of researchers across dozens of species. It cannot simply be not dangerous because a human put a beverage container on it." Bloop 7th floated nervously in its tank. "Our scientists will want to study this phenomenon immediately. We must contact the Galactic Council." "Not yet," So-young said firmly. "We need to understand what's happening first." She walked closer to the device. The humming grew slightly louder as she approached. "Ji-hoon, tell me exactly what you were thinking when you put your mug down." Ji-hoon scratched his head. "I wasn't thinking about anything special. I was tired, I needed somewhere to put my coffee, and it was the only flat surface available." "But you touched it," Eugene pointed out. "You made physical contact with the device." "Just for a second when I set the mug down." Dr. Baewon looked up from his quantum readings. "The field patterns changed the moment you made contact. It's like the device was waiting for something, and your touch provided it." So-young had an idea. "Ji-hoon, would you be willing to try touching it again, just briefly?" The alien observers made sounds of alarm, but Ji-hoon nodded. He approached the device carefully and placed his hand on the crystal surface next to his coffee mug. The humming changed pitch. The blue glow spread. From where his hand touched the crystal, new patterns of light appeared in the twisted metal sections. "The quantum resonance is shifting," Baewon called out. "It's like the device is responding to his biological signature." "Impossible," Krixtal said. Our greatest scientists have studied quantum resonance for millennia. Living beings cannot interface directly with quantum fields. Maybe your scientists were wrong, Ji-hoon said, keeping his hand on the device. This feels natural, like using any other tool. So-young was thinking fast. What if that's exactly what this is? What if it's not a weapon at all, but a tool that requires biological operation? The aliens called it the most dangerous weapon ever created, Captain Dong-hyun reminded her. Because they were trying to use it as a weapon, So-young replied. But what if it's meant to be something else entirely? She asked Ji-hoon to try thinking about different things while touching the device. When he thought about peace, the humming became softer. When he thought about protection, the light grew brighter. When he thought about his home on Earth, the patterns in the metal changed completely. It's reading your mind, Yujin breathed. Not reading, Ji-hoon corrected. More like responding to my intentions. Over the next few hours, they made more discoveries. The device responded differently to each person who touched it. Yujin's contact created broad, shield-like energy fields. Minho's touch seemed to help the device analyze and understand complex patterns. Dr. Baewon could make precise adjustments to the quantum fields just by thinking about specific equations. But the biggest surprise came when Dr. So-young tried it herself. The moment her hand touched the crystal, the device began projecting holographic images into the air above it. The images showed the void swarm, but not as the destructive force they had seen before. It's showing us the swarm's quantum structure, she whispered. This device can analyze and modify quantum patterns on a massive scale. Crixtal moved closer, her crystal form shifting to deep red. You are suggesting that the quantum disruptor array is not meant to destroy, but to transform? Think about it, So-young said. Every species that tried to use this device approached it as a weapon. They tried to activate it remotely with computers and automated systems, but it needs direct biological contact to function properly. And humans are the first species crazy enough to just grab it, Ji-hoon added with a grin. Bloop 7th's tank bubbled frantically as it processed this information. If this is true, then everything we thought we knew about this device is wrong. The breakthrough came when Minho made an observation. The alien technical manuals keep using words about harmony and sympathy. What if those weren't metaphors? What if they were literal descriptions of how the device works? So-young nodded excitedly. It needs to form a sympathetic quantum connection with a living being. That's why all the automated attempts failed. But why humans? Captain Dong-hyun asked. Why not any of the other species? Dr. Baewon had a theory. Human brains are different. We evolved as tool users. Our neural patterns are designed to interface with objects and make them extensions of ourselves. Maybe that's what the device needs. They spent the rest of the day testing the theory. Each human team member discovered they could control different aspects of the device. It was like learning to use a new kind of computer, one that responded to thoughts and intentions instead of keyboards and screens. The most important discovery came when they realized the device could project its effects across vast distances. By working together, the human team could create quantum fields that reached far beyond Luna Base. We could use this on the Void Swarm, So-young said. Instead of trying to destroy them, we could transform their quantum programming. Transform them into what? Crixtal asked. Into something helpful instead of destructive, Ji-hoon replied. The same way putting my coffee mug on this thing turned a weapon into a tool. As if summoned by their conversation, Admiral In-sung's voice came over the communication system. Dr. So-young, please report to the command center immediately. Long-range sensors have detected something approaching the edge of our solar system. The team looked at each other with grim understanding. The Void Swarm had arrived ahead of schedule. How long do we have? So-young asked over the intercom. 6 days until they reach Earth, came the reply. Ji-hoon picked up his coffee mug from the top of the device. The coffee was still perfectly warm. Then we better get to work. The quantum disruptor array hummed quietly, waiting for its human partners to save the galaxy with nothing more than intuition, determination, and really good coffee. Admiral In Sung stood in the command center of Luna Base, staring at the main display screen. The approaching void swarm looked like a dark cloud spreading across space, consuming light itself as it moved toward Earth. "Status report," he said, as Dr. So-Young and her team entered the room. "The enemy fleet will reach Mars orbit in 5 days, reported Commander Lee Wan, the base's tactical officer. "Initial contact with our outer defense grid in 6 days. "What about evacuating Earth?" asked Captain Dong Hyun. "Impossible," In Sung replied. "We have 18 billion people, and not nearly enough transport ships. Besides, where would we take them? The swarm will eventually consume the entire galaxy." So-Young stepped forward. "Admiral, we believe we have a solution, but we need to move the quantum array to your flagship." "Absolutely not," Krixtal interrupted. The alien observer had followed them to the command center. "That device is too dangerous to move. One mistake and you will destroy everything within 100 light years." "With respect," Ji-hoon said, "your people have been wrong about this device from the beginning. It's not dangerous when properly used." In Sung studied the holographic display showing the approaching threat. "What exactly are you proposing, Doctor?" "Want to transform the void swarm instead of destroying it," So-Young explained. "The quantum array can modify their programming on a fundamental level. Turn them from destroyers into protectors," Yoo-jin added. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "How certain are you that this will work?" "About as certain as we were when Ji-hoon put his coffee cup on the galaxy's most dangerous weapon," So-Young admitted. "But it's our only chance." 3 hours later, the quantum disruptor array was being carefully loaded onto the flagship Sol's Pride. The human fleet was small compared to the vast armadas of older galactic civilizations, but their ships were tough, and their crews were determined. Ji-hoon supervised the installation of the array in the ship's main laboratory. He had insisted on bringing his coffee maker, setting it up next to the alien device. "You realize how strange this looks?" Yoo-jin said, watching him prepare his first cup of coffee in space. "Strange situations require familiar comforts," Ji-hoon replied, taking a sip of the hot brew. "Besides, this whole thing started with coffee. Might as well finish it the same way." The array hummed contentedly as Ji-hoon placed his hand on its surface. Over the past few days, he had become the team's primary operator. His connection with the device seemed stronger than anyone else's. "I still do not understand how this is possible," Krixtal said. She had insisted on joining them aboard the flagship, claiming her government needed a first-hand report of humanity's success or failure. "Maybe that's the problem," said a new voice from the laboratory entrance. Everyone turned to see Dr. Kremos, the small gray scientist from the Galactic Council. "Kremos?" So-Young was surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I came to observe," he said, flowing into the room with his liquid movement. "And to apologize. We gave you that device expecting you to fail. We thought your failure might at least provide useful data for other attempts." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Ji-hoon said dryly. "But now I see we were approaching the problem entirely wrong," Kremos continued. "We treated the array as a tool to be controlled. You treat it as a partner to be understood." Bloop 7th, who had also joined them on the ship, bubbled agreement in its tank. "The Tentacled Collective has been analyzing your success. We believe the key is what humans call intuition. Your species makes decisions based on feelings and instincts, not just logic. That's how Ji-hoon knew to put his coffee on the device," So-Young realized. "It wasn't really random. Some part of him sensed that it would work. Or I was just tired and needed somewhere to put my mug," Ji-hoon said with a smile. The final test came when they reached Earth's orbital defense grid. The human fleet took position at the edge of the solar system, waiting for the void swarm to arrive. Admiral In Sung addressed the crew over the ship's communication system. This is it. People. Everything depends on the next few hours. Trust in your training, trust in your equipment, and trust in each other. In the laboratory, Ji-hoon sat down next to the quantum array with his coffee cup in hand. The rest of the human team took positions around the device, each ready to contribute their unique connection to its power. The swarm will be here in 30 minutes, Yujin reported, monitoring the long-range sensors. Are you ready? So, Young asked Ji-hoon. He took a sip of coffee and placed his free hand on the array. The device responded immediately, its humming growing stronger and more musical. As ready as anyone can be for something that's never been tried before, he replied. The alien observers watched nervously as the human team began their preparations. Krixtal recorded everything for the Galactic Council. Bloop 7th monitored. Quantum readings that its species had never seen before. Kremos simply watched with fascination as the humans did what every advanced civilization in the galaxy had deemed impossible. Contact in 5 minutes, announced Commander Lee Wan from the bridge. Ji-hoon closed his eyes and let his consciousness merge with the quantum array. He could feel the device's vast power flowing through his mind, but it didn't feel overwhelming. It felt natural, like picking up a familiar tool. I can sense them, he said softly. The swarm. They're not evil. They're just following their programming. Someone created them long ago to consume and process matter, but they were never given a stop command. Can you change that? So Young asked. We can try, Ji-hoon replied. Everyone ready? The team members placed their hands on different parts of the array. Yujin would create protective shields. Minho would help with pattern recognition and communication. Dr. Bae-wan would handle the complex quantum calculations. So Young would coordinate their efforts. Contact, Lee Wan announced. On the main display, the void swarm appeared as a wall of darkness studded with mechanical shapes the size of asteroids. They moved with perfect coordination, like a school of metal fish swimming through space. Initiating quantum field projection, Ji-hoon announced. The array began to glow brighter than ever before. Energy patterns flowed across its crystal surface like liquid light. The human team worked together, their minds linked through the device, reaching out across space to touch the ancient machines that threatened all life in the galaxy. Field established, Yujin reported. We're connected to the swarm. Now comes the hard part, Ji-hoon said, taking another sip of coffee. Let's give them something better to do. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, depending on a small group of humans who had learned that sometimes the most powerful tools in the universe just needed a gentle, intuitive touch and a really good cup of coffee. The void swarm filled the view screen like a living nightmare. Thousands of mechanical creatures moved in perfect formation, each one large enough to swallow a battleship. They had consumed 17 star systems, and now they were only hours away from Earth. In the laboratory aboard Soul's Pride, Ji-hoon kept his hand steady on the quantum array while sipping his coffee. The device glowed brighter with each passing minute, its crystal surface warm under his palm. Quantum connection established, Dr. Bae-wan reported. We're linked to their central processing network. I can feel them, Ji-hoon said quietly. Millions of individual machines, but they all share the same core programming. They're like a hive mind, but mechanical. So Young monitored the energy readings. Can you access their base code? It's not code like we understand it, Minho said, his hand pressed against another part of the array. It's more like quantum DNA. The instructions are written into the fabric of their existence. On the bridge, Admiral In Sung watched the approaching swarm with grim determination. All ships maintain defensive formation. Do not fire unless fired upon. Our scientists are attempting a peaceful resolution. Peaceful resolution? Captain Park, commander of the destroyer Busan Thunder, sounded skeptical over the communications channel. Admiral, those things have destroyed entire civilizations. Because no one ever tried to reason with them, In-sung replied. Stand by. In the laboratory, Yu-jin was creating protective quantum fields around the human fleet. The shields shimmered like soap bubbles, but they were strong enough to deflect energy weapons that could crack planets. The swarm is scanning us, she reported. They're trying to understand what we are. Let them look, Ji-hoon said. Maybe if they see what we're trying to do, they'll cooperate. Krixtal watched the proceedings with growing amazement. This is impossible. You are maintaining quantum coherence across millions of light years while simultaneously processing complex transformation algorithms. No species should be capable of this level of multitasking. We're good with tools, Ji-hoon replied simply. Always have been. Bloop 7th's tank bubbled frantically as it observed readings no tentacled collective scientist had ever seen. The quantum resonance patterns are unlike anything in our databases. You are not just using the array, you are becoming part of it. Does that bother you? So Young asked. It should terrify me, Bloop 7th admitted. But instead it gives me hope. The moment of truth came when the Void Swarm's lead elements reached the edge of Earth's solar system. The mechanical entities slowed, their sensors probing the quantum fields radiating from the human fleet. They're confused, Min-ho reported. Their programming tells them to consume everything, but they're detecting something they've never encountered before. What's that? Yu-jin asked. Intention without aggression. We're reaching out to them, but we're not trying to control or destroy them. Ji-hoon felt a strange sensation, like touching the mind of something vast and ancient. The Void Swarm was old, older than most galactic civilizations. They had been wandering space for millions of years, following instructions given to them by creators long dead. They're tired, he said suddenly. They've been following the same commands for so long that they've forgotten what they were originally supposed to do. What were they supposed to do? So Young asked. Build, create. They were construction machines designed to process raw materials and build something wonderful. But their creators died before finishing the project, and the machines just kept processing and consuming because that's all they knew how to do. The array hummed more loudly as Ji-hoon deepened his connection with the approaching swarm. Around the laboratory, holographic displays showed the mechanical entities slowing down, their formation becoming less aggressive. It's working, Yu-jin breathed. They're responding to the new programming, but the process was not easy. The Void Swarm's quantum signature was enormous, and changing it required incredible precision. Ji-hoon felt like he was trying to reprogram a computer the size of a solar system while it was still running. I need more coffee, he said, reaching for his mug without breaking contact with the array. More coffee? Krixtal sounded incredulous. You are performing quantum surgery on a galactic-level threat and you want more coffee? Coffee helps me think, Ji-hoon replied, taking a long sip. And right now, I need to think very clearly. The warm liquid seemed to sharpen his focus. The quantum patterns became clearer, easier to understand and manipulate. He began making subtle changes to the swarm's core programming, replacing their consumption imperatives with construction protocols. The lead elements are changing course, Admiral In-sung announced over the communication system. They're moving away from Earth. In the laboratory, the team watched holographic displays showing the transformation in real time. The mechanical entities were rearranging themselves, their dark, aggressive forms becoming brighter and more organized. They're remembering, Min-ho said in wonder. They're remembering what they were originally built to do. Which was what, exactly? Captain Dong-hyun asked. Build a network, Ji-hoon replied. His eyes closed as he maintained contact with the array. A galaxy-spanning communication and protection system. They were supposed to create safe travel routes and guard inhabited worlds from cosmic threats. A guardian network, So Young realized. They were meant to protect life, not destroy it. The transformation accelerated as more of the swarm accepted their new programming. Mechanical entities that had been instruments of destruction began linking together in complex patterns, forming structures that looked almost organic. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Kremos said, recording everything with his advanced sensors. "You are not just changing their programming. You are helping them remember their true purpose." "Sometimes that's all anyone needs," Eugene said softly. "A reminder of who they really are." The process took 3 hours. Ji-hoon sat calmly throughout, occasionally sipping his coffee and making fine adjustments to the quantum fields. The rest of the team supported him, each contributing their unique connection to the array. When it was over, the Void Swarm had become something entirely new. The dark, consuming entities were now bright guardians, their mechanical forms beautiful, instead of terrifying. They spread throughout the solar system, but instead of destroying, they began building. "What are they constructing?" Admiral In-sung asked. "Defense platforms," Ji-hoon replied, finally lifting his hand from the array. "Early warning systems, communications relays. They're turning our solar system into the safest place in the galaxy." The view screen, the transformed entities worked with incredible efficiency. They built structures from nothing, manipulating matter and energy with casual ease. Within hours, Earth was surrounded by a protective network that would shield it from any cosmic threat. "The other members of the swarm are responding," Minho reported. "The transformation is spreading throughout their network. Everywhere they go, they'll be protectors instead of destroyers." Krixtal's crystal form shifted through every color in the spectrum. "You have taken the galaxy's greatest threat and turned it into its greatest defense. How do you feel about this accomplishment?" Ji-hoon finished the last of his coffee and smiled. "Like I need another cup. Saving the galaxy is thirsty work." Bloop 7th bubbled with what might have been laughter. "The tentacled collective will be fascinated by this development. We have observed the birth of a new form of diplomacy." "What do you mean?" So Young asked. "Coffee break diplomacy," Bloop 7th replied. "The art of solving impossible problems through casual conversation and warm beverages." As the news of humanity's success spread throughout the galaxy, Ji-hoon sat quietly in the laboratory, already preparing his next cup of coffee. The quantum array hummed peacefully beside him, no longer a weapon but a tool for understanding and cooperation. Outside the ship's windows, the newly transformed Guardians continued their work, building a safer galaxy one structure at a time. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that only humans had been brave enough or foolish enough to discover. Sometimes the most powerful technology in the universe just needed someone to treat it like an old friend and offer it a good cup of coffee. 6 months after the transformation of the Void Swarm, Ambassador Hyun-woo stood once again in the Galactic Council chambers. But this time, everything was different. The massive hall buzzed with excitement instead of fear. Representatives from hundreds of species had come to witness humanity's formal acceptance into the Council as full members. More importantly, they had come to learn about what the galaxy now called the human method. Hyun-woo wore the same simple black diplomatic suit he had worn during his first visit. But now the alien delegates looked at him with respect instead of dismissal. Behind him stood his team, the people who had saved the galaxy with nothing more than intuition, determination, and good coffee. High Counselor Veltan called for silence, her crystal form glowing with warm golden light. 6 months ago we gave the humans our most dangerous weapon, expecting them to fail as so many others had failed before them. Instead, she continued, they discovered that our weapon was never a weapon at all. It was a tool for transformation, for communication, for understanding. We simply never learned how to use it properly. Dr. So Young stepped forward to address the assembly. The quantum disruptor array worked for us because we didn't treat it as something to be feared. We treated it as equipment to be understood and used. A delegate from the insectoid hive collective clicked its mandibles together. But how did you know to approach it so casually? Our greatest scientists studied that device for centuries without success. That's exactly the problem, Ji-hoon said, moving to stand beside So-young. You studied it. We just started using it. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the assembly. A floating gas being from the Nebula Alliance spoke up. You mean you did not plan your approach? You did not run calculations and risk assessments? Oh, we did some of that, Yoo-jin replied. But the breakthrough came when Ji-hoon got tired and needed somewhere to put his coffee cup. The chamber fell silent. Then Kremos began making the sound that his species used for laughter, a musical trill that echoed off the walls. They used the most dangerous device in galactic history as furniture, he announced to the assembly, and it worked perfectly. But surely there must be some scientific explanation, protested a crystalline delegate from the Silicon Federation. Random chance cannot account for such success. It wasn't random, So-young explained. Humans have a unique relationship with our tools. We don't just use them. We integrate them into our daily lives. We make them part of ourselves, she gestured, to a holographic display that showed brain scans of the human team while they operated the array. When we interact with technology, our neural patterns change. We form genuine connections with our equipment. That's what the array needed. Not just commands, but partnership. Minho stepped forward. The alien technical manuals kept using words like harmony and sympathy. We thought they were being poetic, but they were being literal. The device creates sympathetic quantum resonance with biological operators. And humans are particularly good at forming these connections, added Dr. Baewon. We evolved as tool users. Our brains are wired to extend our consciousness into the objects we work with. Veltan's form shifted to a thoughtful blue color. So the device responds to biological empathy rather than logical commands. Exactly, Ji-hoon said. It's not enough to give it instructions. You have to actually care about what you're trying to accomplish. You have to form an emotional connection with the process. Which is why the coffee cup worked, So-young continued. Ji-hoon wasn't trying to activate anything. He was just treating the device like part of his normal work environment. The array sensed that casual acceptance and responded accordingly. Bloop 7th floated forward in its translation tank. The tentacled collective has been studying the Guardian network created by the transformed swarm. Their construction follows principles that none of our sciences predicted. They build with intuition rather than rigid planning. And their structures are more effective than anything we could have designed, added Krixtall. The protection systems they created around inhabited worlds are beyond our most advanced defensive technologies. A small, mouse-like delegate from the Rodent Republic squeaked a question through its translator. Are you suggesting that logical scientific approaches are inferior to intuitive ones? Not inferior, Hyun-woo replied diplomatically. Complementary. Logic and calculation are important, but they're not everything. Sometimes you need to feel your way through a problem instead of thinking your way through it. The humans call it common sense, Kremos added. The ability to find simple solutions to complex problems by approaching them naturally rather than academically. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates struggled to understand how such an unscientific approach could succeed where careful analysis had failed. Others began to see the wisdom in treating technology as a partner rather than a tool. Finally, Veltan called for order. The evidence is clear. Humanity's approach has solved a problem that threatened all life in our galaxy. They have earned not only membership in this council, but our gratitude and respect. The formal vote was unanimous. Humanity was welcomed as the council's newest full member, with all the rights and responsibilities that came with the position. After the ceremony, the human delegation was approached by dozens of alien scientists eager to learn more about the human method. Plans were made for exchange programs, joint research projects, and collaborative exploration missions. But the most important moment came when a young Zephyrian scientist, her crystal form flickering with nervous energy, approached Ji-hoon directly. "Human. Ji-hoon," she said formally, "I am Zilandra of the Crystal Academy. I wish to learn your coffee-making techniques." "My coffee-making techniques?" Ji-hoon looked puzzled. "Yes. If casual interaction with warm beverages can lead to breakthrough discoveries, then I must understand this process completely." Ji-hoon smiled. "Sure, I can teach you, but I should warn you. My coffee is pretty terrible." "I do not understand. If your coffee is terrible, how did it help you save the galaxy?" "That's the point," Ji-hoon replied. "It wasn't about the coffee being good. It was about the coffee being normal. Sometimes the most extraordinary solutions come from the most ordinary actions." As the formal sessions ended, representatives from across the galaxy approached the human team with requests for advice, collaboration, and friendship. The species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers now recognized them as valuable partners in building a better future. Later that evening, back on Luna Base, Ji-hoon sat in Laboratory 7 with a fresh cup of coffee. The Quantum Array hummed quietly beside him, no longer a mysterious alien artifact but a familiar piece of equipment. Several modified versions of the device now served various functions throughout the solar system, including one that kept the research station's coffee at the perfect temperature. Dr. So-young joined him, carrying her own mug. "Any regrets about how this all turned out?" Ji-hoon considered the question while sipping his coffee. Outside the laboratory windows, the Guardian Network's structures glowed softly in the distance, protecting Earth and every other inhabited world in the galaxy. "Only one," he said finally. "What's that?" "I wish I'd made better coffee that night. If we're going to be famous for saving the galaxy with a coffee cup, it should have at least been good coffee." So-young laughed. "I think the terrible coffee was part of what made it work. Good coffee might have been too precious to casually set down on an alien weapon." "You're probably right," Ji-hoon agreed. "The universe has a sense of humor like that. As word of humanity's success spread throughout the galaxy, other species began experimenting with more casual, intuitive approaches to their own technological challenges. Coffee shops opened on space stations across civilized space. Research laboratories started including comfortable break areas. Scientists began taking regular pauses to clear their minds and approach problems from new angles. The coffee cup incident, as history would remember it, became more than just the moment. Humanity saved the galaxy. It became the beginning of a new era of cooperation between species, based on the simple idea that sometimes the best solutions come not from thinking harder, but from thinking differently. And at the center of it all was a fundamental truth that only humanity had been casual enough to discover. The most advanced technology in the universe worked best when treated with the same everyday consideration you would give to a coffee cup. In research stations and laboratories across the galaxy, scientists now kept warm beverages close to their most important equipment, not because they believed in magic, but because they had learned that the most sophisticated tools sometimes needed nothing more than a gentle reminder that they were part of someone's daily routine. The galaxy was safer, more connected, and more collaborative than ever before. All because one tired human had needed somewhere to put his coffee and had chosen to trust that the universe would understand his intentions. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest actions. Sometimes saving the galaxy is as easy as making yourself at home.